It's been weeks of rage, with the youths permanently occupying the street with long lists of demands from the federal government. The youths are asking pertinent questions relating to their collective gains from the process of governance and lack of accountability in the system. Top on their demand list is an end to the defunct tactical unit of the police force, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad (SAS), the swift inauguration of another tactical unit known as SWAT, and an end to police brutality in Nigeria. Though the police high command has since ceded to all the demands of the aggrieved youths, and the federal government also accepting to reform the force, the protest has not ceased, and tension is building around the country. What are the options available to the federal government in the face of the rage? Flow FM TV engaged a security expert and former director of operations in a contemporary Nigeria. We asked him how Nigeria sunk to the point of endless street protests and the kind of reformed police structure that he hopes to see.
Well, thank you very much for this interview. I must say it's very timely, particularly with the magnitude of what we are experiencing now. It's not something we can handle with kid gloves in any way. This is, if we look at the experience of the Arab countries, this is how the Arab Springs started in Northern Africa, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, Yemen, Bahrain, you name them. It started like this. And I think it's very unfortunate that we have gotten to this level, but I believe that all hope is not lost. You will agree with me that we have had a lot of challenges over the years, and this is what has led us to where we are today. The country is grossly under-policed. For instance, United Nations, their benchmark is 1 policeman to 400 people. You ask yourself the question, what is the situation in Nigeria? We have about 371,000 policemen in the country to police 200 million Nigerians. Now, if we are to go by the United Nations benchmark, we need at least 500,000 policemen in this country. And we have only about 371,000. Now, I was listening to a former Inspector General of Police, and he said, out of that 371,000, about 250,000 are attached to private individuals and VIPs for guard duties, leaving the real police work to just about less than 150,000 people. Well, I don't know if those statistics are right, but if that is the situation, then it's a very grim situation. In such circumstances, what do you expect? A lot of things that have to be put in place. For instance, if you look at the equipment we have for our police, for God's sake, when you travel outside this country, more serious crimes, you have CCTV cameras all over the place. So it makes the job much easier for the police over there. Now, our policemen attend courses abroad. They perform very well. They go for peacekeeping operations. They do very well. Those that they perform better than in maybe courses that they attended abroad, international courses. Now, when they are faced with similar crimes over there, because they have equipment, within 24 hours, crimes are solved. But here, because they don't have the equipment, 1 year after, 2 years, 3 years, people are asking, what has happened? But the real issue is the equipment are not there. But even if we have this equipment there, definitely this will be able to perform like their counterparts, in other parts of the world. We look at the training. I was watching something on social media, looking at the kind of feeding you have for our policemen. When you subject a man to that kind of condition, by the time he comes out of training, what do you expect? There's also the issue of public distrust of the police. We say the public should share information. How many times do people offer this information? They are scared too because they don't know what will become of them after profiling such information. So then again, you look at the remuneration of the police. How well paid are they? I once listened to a senior police officer in an interview. He said he's looking forward to the day when police stations will look like banking halls. You go to our police stations today, they look like abattoirs. It's really terrible. So I think a lot has to be done. Then how much do you pay these policemen? A man has so much powers and very little to take care of his family. So these are issues that we must address. The situation is really, really not the best for them. I believe that the salaries of the police should be looked into. And again, we must contend with the issue of sophistication in crimes these days. We have a lot of unemployed people out there, well trained, and by the time they begin to put to practice some of the things they've studied in school, when they begin to deploy those things for crime, you begin to ask yourself, the policemen you want to use to arrest or to counter this, how equipped are they themselves? Somebody told me a story about a fellow who was kidnapped. Now the kidnapped fellow was suffering from hypertension. He said while he was in the custody of these kidnappers, he told them that he needed his drugs. And when he told them the kind of drugs, or the drugs he was using, the kidnapper was asking him, why are you not using this type? Why are you using this type? You could see that the kidnapper was either a medical doctor, a pharmacist, or somebody who has some good knowledge of medical science. So you find out that people getting into crime. The other day I was watching telly, they said one guy who he snatches cars or is involved in the sale of all these used cars and things. He's an architect. I couldn't believe it. So when you have such people getting involved in crime these days, you can be sure that the level of sophistication has really gone high, and the police these are the kind of people the police have to contend with these days, and definitely if we don't train them well, I don't think we expect to get the best from them. That is a combination of the very terrible circumstances which these people find themselves. It is not about the training. It's about the conditions under which these people work. And when you find yourself in such unholy environment, after a long while it begins to get to you. When you see the kind of accommodation they have, you see where the police live, and I don't even know what allowances they are paid. Honestly, there was once I had an encounter, for instance, with the police on the road, and I wasn't so pleased with their behavior, but the superior officer who was there said, "Oga, please don't be angry. By the time these boys stay under the sun for so long like this, it gets to them. They are human beings. There's no way they wouldn't react. Please, we are sorry for what happened." So I believe, like you said, these are human beings like all of us, but at times, circumstances in which they find themselves could really provoke them into doing certain things. Well, that's a very wide-ranging subject. We have to look at a lot of things. Now we have precedents to look at. In places like America, for instance, the US, they have an office of the Inspector General of Police, not performing the same functions as our own Inspector General of Police. What they do there is they have an office, is like an Auditor General, somebody who audits the activities of the police every year. So for instance, maybe 2019 now, they could say, All right, let us see. How did the police handle all the criminal cases, all the murder cases? They x-ray every case, and at the end of the day, whoever is found guilty of having abused his powers is brought to book. You don't wait for an NSAS strike or demonstration before you begin to take action. There is an office that has that responsibility. Now in Nigeria here, I know we have a police service commission that oversights the activities of the police. Now if you look at Nigeria's security architecture, we have the intelligence service, we have the defense, and then the police. The intelligence service is headed by the National Security Advisor. I believe he attends the Federal Executive Council meetings, which is the highest body up there. But the police is not represented there anymore. But the Minister of Defense is there. So all the other arms of our security arms are all represented there. So I don't know whether we have to look at that again to see whether the police can have a voice at that level. Then there are issues like intelligence-led policing. We talk about that all the time. Are we paying lip service to intelligence-led policing? You don't wait. You don't have to be reactive when it comes to combating crime. You don't wait until things happen. You know all the what do you call it? All the dark spots in the town. You know all the forests where these people are staying. Have you gone there to smoke them out, or do you wait until they begin to come out? So intelligence provides you that capability to be able to know where the criminals are, not to wait until they come. If we are reforming again, it's very important because everybody is yearning for it. State police, we are more than right for it. We've copied the Americans who have taken their presidential system of government, fine. What of the other methods they have adopted in ensuring that they contain crime and criminality in the society? You have what you call state troopers. You have the federal police and all sorts. We are overripe for it. People are giving reasons. Sometimes they will tell you that if you have state police, politicians will hijack it. Well, for God's sake, there should be safeguards. What is wrong in saying that, okay, if PDP is ruling in the state, that whoever should be the head of the police, maybe there's a police board or a police commission or something, should be from the opposition party or the party with the highest or the second highest number of votes in the election. There could be a check. There should be a way we check it. There are countries sometimes like Turkey. The police is not headed by a policeman. Like I remember one state there, headed by somebody who was a former governor at some time in the past. So human rights activists and so on could be brought in to head, to head the police, depending on what structure we want to adopt. Now, apart from state police, we've also been hearing a lot about community policing. We must involve the people. There must be a partnership between the people and the police. So if the people are equally involved, it makes it easier to combat crime. If we're reforming the police also, we must look at the funding. We should have a proper police trust fund. 2017, I think police what they got, the budget was about, maybe at today's exchange rate, maybe about 40 billion. But what they were requesting for was about 1.4 trillion. And you get 40 billion, a far cry from what. So in that circumstance, I remember once, I think it was during the Boko Haram crisis, and I also had something like the military. They made a request because the soldiers then were having issues with their arms and ammunition. They needed so much. But at the end of the day, these arms were not available. And the military council sat down and said, okay, let's buy from some countries in the particular country in Southeast Asia whose arms were cheaper. And they went for it. But at the end of the day, when you fire those bullets, when you fire those guns after 500 rounds, they start, bullet starts getting stuck, gets hot, and all that. And there was hue and cry. Why did they buy this quality of weapons? The issue was, look, we requested maybe 16 billion, we were given 6 billion. What do we do? Is it not better for these boys to have some ammunition to fight rather than be met in between and there's no ammunition and these boys just shoot around you and kill you off? So I think it's very important that we look at how we cut the budget of the police. It's very important that we address these issues. Then the issue of corruption. Yes, a man who has so much powers, the tendency is for him to want to abuse such powers once in a while. But again, also we must look at the public. We Nigerians who have this tendency of wanting the quick way out. We should begin to look at how do we sort out, these crimes that people should be issued tickets. I think we should develop something like that. When people commit offenses, issue a ticket. Right? Let us develop that system. Rather than this system where once you do something, they drag you to the station. Once the offense is established, give the man a ticket and let him pay. Rather than this money should come into government, rather than money is going into pockets of private pockets. So it's important we look at these things. Equipment. I've emphasized that point before. What equipment do we have for the police? Then policemen should also specialize in their operations. In the medical field, for instance, you go to the hospital, there's a doctor, there's a pharmacist, there's a nurse, there's a medical lab officer, and so on. You don't become a doctor today. After working as a doctor for 2-3 years, you say, move me, I want to become a pharmacist. Then after a few years as a pharmacist, you say, I want to be a nurse. We must look at that in the police. People must specialize. You don't become a forensic expert. Then after police has spent so much to train you, maybe because that section is not particularly as lucrative or viable as it should be, then you lobby to be moved to go and work and carry bags for a governor. It's a waste. So we must specialize. In the military, you have infantry units, you have artillery units, you have signals, you have education. People specialize and grow up. So it's important that we also do that for the police. We must not spend money, train our police, and then they will not stay in those sections long enough for the public to benefit from that training. So it's important that police should specialize, and when they specialize, they should be kept in those sections to give the services for which they have been trained. No, you see, there was, I think the National Assembly, there was one Abonta, there was one review they did on the police, and they came to that conclusion that we must meet this figure. For instance, the UN says 1 policeman to 400 people. For God's sake, let us go ahead and employ them. Let's take it off from there. I mean, we're employing people in other sectors. If this sector is so important to us, why should we be under-policed? So it is important that funds are provided to ensure that we have at least 500,000 policemen. Because now there are a lot of other crimes that we have in this country that are not particularly issues in other countries. So they might not be spending their resources on them. Like in the advanced societies, they have, for VIP protection, you have units, secret service units that are charged with that responsibility of providing security for VIPs. So it has nothing to do with the regular police. So we must get to a stage where we begin to look at all of this. So we have a special unit that handles protection of provision of protection of our private citizens. So anybody who is interested, you go there. Not the policemen that were expecting to protect us from crime and criminals. Then you go and start encumbering them with the same job of providing security for dignitaries. Elsewhere, that's a function that is handled by specialized units. Excellent. That is one thing that has been long awaited, especially for a lot of. We have a large army of retired security personnel in this country, from the military, from the police. A lot of them retire young, and a lot of the training they've acquired just wasting. Before now, most of the security companies we have, all they do is security guard duties. But now that would allow, for private detectives, that is also, if it's done properly, it will really help in bringing down crime in this country. I think a lot of us are excited about it, and we're really good to go in terms of exploring the potentials in that field. No, I told you that what the UN has a standard benchmark. It says to us, look, 1 policeman to 400. There are some other schools of thought that are even now saying is 1 policeman to 222 people. So that means you need more. You need more. So the way it is, it's only proper that at least let us begin to reach these benchmarks. Let us be guided by what happens internationally. Because like I said earlier, our policemen go elsewhere and perform very creditably, come back with all sorts of laurels. But then when they come back here, the circumstances they find themselves, they are so encumbered by all the shortcomings they find around themselves, and they can't perform. But I believe that if we can increase our number of policemen, it will help us to go a long way making a difference. Well, I believe that is not a very serious issue for now. As far as I know, or understand how the system works. For instance, the Department of State Services on a daily basis, has what it calls a daily information summary, provides reports daily to all agencies to say, look, this is the state of affairs. So at all times, it gauges the system and supplies information. And I believe there is a high level of cooperation going on between them. That's not to say there might not be shortcomings here and there, because like I've said, there's the issue of equipment. Modern day policing or security operations require sophisticated equipment. There are a lot of equipment that Nigeria was only able to acquire just in the last couple of years. Meanwhile, in other clients, they've had these things several years ago. But now we are just beginning to acquire them. And to maintain this equipment is so expensive. There was a particular situation where when Nigeria was contending with this, very seriously with this influx of terrorists into the country through our northern borders. And I was opportune to attend a briefing, not a briefing, what do you call it now? A demonstration by a foreign firm that wanted to come and give us the capability to be able to monitor our borders, And we listened to a very good talk. We were so excited about the talk. And then when we now asked the guy the cost, he said $20 billion. And we asked him, $20 billion, how? What is our GDP here? And you now come and tell us $20 billion, not million, billion. So, security is very expensive. But if we have that, like Turkey, for instance, now has a border with about 8 countries, no fly can pass through its airspace without being picked up. Because they have, so we had an interface with the company that handles their security, the equipment they have for their border protection. And $20 billion they told us. So Nigeria as a whole, how much do we have in our foreign reserve that you now go and buy equipment for 20 billion? So we have to improvise. That is where we are, and the situation is really tough. But I believe within our means and with very good training, we'll be able to adjust and see what we can do, because we can't say because we don't have all the money to acquire what we want, then we'll just sit down and fold our hands. But I believe that if we have a very good number of well-trained security experts in this country who can make a difference. But I believe if they're encouraged, they'll be able to do much more for us. I'll look at it simply. We're operating a democratic system. What is democracy? Government of the people, for the people, by the people. All I will advise government is to listen to the people at this time. We cannot do otherwise. We cannot use force to contain this present situation. You cannot. Those who tried it, you will see the likes of Hosni Mubarak in Egypt during the Arab Springs. He tried it. Use force, policemen on horses, whipping people and all sorts of things. At the end of the day, what happened? It consumed him. The Arab Springs consumed Gaddafi. The Arab Springs consumed Ben Ali in, what's that place called now? Tunisia. The Arab Springs consumed, I think, somebody in Yemen, Abdullah Saleh, and all that. So you must listen to the people at this time. What are the people saying? That's the only approach you can adopt at this time. No use of force to contain the situation, because that will really compound things. I think that is just the best approach you can adopt at this time. No, I don't support that at all. I don't give in to that, because the moment these young ones see these people in uniform, it could provoke them further. So I don't think it's to be in the best interest of what is happening now to bring in anything like Crocodile Smile 6 and all of that. I would advise that they put a hold on that and see how best they can engage with these youths and see how much of their desires can be met. Well, even where there is war, we will always end war with dialogue. It always ends on the table. So we cannot just end it in the air like that. At some point, we'll get to some point where some form of leadership structure would have to emerge. Even if they are not leaders, they are spokesmen. Government will have to see that we can't continue that way. So even if you are saying, making your demands, at some point I will have to sit down and talk. So I believe that whatever it is, at some point, some spokespersons, if they don't want to call themselves leaders, would have to emerge for them to be able to interface with government, and then we reach a common ground on the way forward. Community policing, I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's essentially about public police partnership. Police will not be doing it alone. Most of the things we do would have to involve the police. So that it's not when crimes occur, then we begin to call the police to come from. They are already part of the system. Whatever we are doing, we are collecting, taxes, or we are doing little things that we, even controlling our parks and things like that. You involve the police at every stage of what we are doing, so that they are not at sea when it comes to developments around. You have to bring them into whatever is good. So whether you have a federal police, whether you have state police, community policing remains a very effective means of combating crime. I believe that we are long overdue for that, and I think we should adopt that as quickly as possible. Well, I think we have captured that in most of what I've said about police reforms. If we can put these things in place, make sure we have intelligence-led policing. My brother, these people are not ghosts. They come in from somewhere. Set up structures where you can monitor these movements. You don't wait until they begin to strike communities before you begin to react. No. There should be a system of monitoring them. There was like somewhere in the Middle East at some point, what the security forces used to do then, they want to monitor these terrorists and what have you. They will purposely go and leave weapons somewhere in one barracks, and the terrorists will attack and carry all their weapons. All those weapons have a chip. So the terrorists will take them, disappear with them, and there will be story all over the place that, terrorists have overrun a particular military barracks, and they took away their weapons, and the public will be saying shame to the military. But it's a strategy. The military will not come and tell you it's a strategy, right? But this is a strategy. So when they take these weapons and disappear, now all of them have computer chips. So with that, when they move to their respective camps, the military is able to monitor where they have gone to, and then you understand. So the same thing with these our headsmen. I mean, there are various methods we can adopt to monitor them all over. So it's about intelligence-led policing. If we do that, we'll be able to contain that effectively.